The Kabbalah is a collection of Jewish magical texts. The collection of texts called the Kabbalah were eventually transcribed by Rabbi Isaac the Blind in Provence in the south of France. The Kabbalistic writings of Isaac the Blind fell into the hands of a group of 9 French noblemen. These noblemen became known as the Knights Templar. The word cabal, meaning a group who conspire together, comes from the word Kabbalah. One such cabal, who were to later inspire a whole armada of black magic cults and Freemasonry, were the so-called Knights Templar. They laughingly called themselves the Poor Knights of Christ, but these men were far from poor. They deliberately styled themselves as monks so that they could go about their Luciferian Kabbalistic studies and conduct business without being taxed nor arouse suspicion from the Vatican. The Kabbalistic higher secrets of ritual sodomy, the evil eye, chanting incantations, necromancy, blood sacrifice, and invoking the fallen angels in service to Lucifer fascinated the French Knights Templar. They realized that the Kabbalah originated in Palestine, and once they had realized that the Kabbalah was the key to untold spiritual magical power, they cunningly planned a bloody crusade to Palestine in order to search for more Kabbalistic and magical artifacts. They eventually discovered and looted the Temple of Solomon. The Knights Templar arrived in Palestine with one main goal: to stop the Muslims from gaining any knowledge about the Kabbalah. Historical Islamic oral accounts from the 12th century testify to a sickening crusade of plunder, torture, murder, and sexual depravity. The Knights Templar, once they had discovered the magical teachings of the Kabbalah, were dedicated utterly to destroying its origins so that they might hold its secrets exclusively. Archaeologists have found ample evidence of tunnels constructed by the Templars in Jerusalem.
1096 AD. An army of European knights marches thousands of miles to the region they call the Holy Land. Muslim states dominate the Middle East and a region that stretches from Persia to Spain.
When the Crusaders captured Jerusalem, first thing that happened, there was a bloodbath of almighty proportions. They slaughtered everybody, Christian, Jew, Muslim alike. It was not a pretty event.
A French eyewitness describes the carnage. Piles of heads, hands, and feet were to be seen in the streets of the city. In the temple and porch of Solomon, men rode in blood up to their knees and bridle reins.
When the Templars installed themselves on the hill where the Temple of Solomon had once stood, it had a profound effect on them, and they began examining it. These researches led them to remains which contained the essence of some secret traditions to the heart of ancient Jewish belief. They encountered a teaching which constituted the pagan aspect of ancient Jewish belief. The origins of the Kabbalah go back to ancient Egypt, and it has constituted the basis of all kinds of magic ritual and secret sciences. The mystic teaching in these lands, under whose spell the Templars fell, reshaped their beliefs and ways of living. No matter how much they still maintained the external appearance of warrior Christian monks, among themselves they had secretly adopted the Kabbalist philosophy and way of life.
The Templars' strange dual identity puzzled their fellow Crusaders. Many wondered if perhaps these fighting monks had some other hidden mission. The fact that the Templars held all of their meetings in secret made them even more intriguing.
The Templars had a very strict chain of command. Everything belonged to the order. Marriage, owning a house, and enjoying family relations were all forbidden. They wore only a white robe with a red cross on it, and never washed.
The Templars vowed never to bathe or to change their sheepskin drawers.
Their seal was a figure of two knights riding the same horse. Although they maintained that this symbolized brotherhood, in fact, it had another secret meaning. According to a widespread belief, this symbol represented homosexuality.
In the heart of the city of London stands the English headquarters of the Knights Templar. Within these walls, a mysterious ritual took place to induct new members into the Brotherhood. New recruits would enter the temple by the west door, which was then locked shut. This was a secret ceremony.
The ceremony took place at dawn, just as the sun was rising, as if they were going into a new life.
Wise men said, just walk this way, to the dawn of the light.
By 1186, the Templars' last days in Jerusalem were approaching. A Muslim army under Saladin had inflicted a heavy defeat on the Crusaders. The Crusader armies had gravely oppressed the Muslims during their 100 years in the region. The people of Jerusalem were alarmed. They were terrified the Muslims would seek their revenge. Yet they were in for a great surprise. Saladin did not harm the civilian population. Moreover, he pardoned the majority of the Christians he captured. Only the Templars were executed for the slaughter they had carried out.
These men, brave and rigorous in arms, have struck hard with frequent attacks, both secretly and openly, so that those who previously terrorized us now regard themselves as most happy if they are permitted to live in peace.
So terrible are the Templars that the great Muslim general Salah ad-Din, as generous as he is shrewd, has shown them no mercy.
But despite the unparalleled fortifications, the Templars were unable to resist the tide of the Muslim forces who wanted to sweep them out of the Holy Land. By the end of the 13th century, every Templar castle had fallen, except Tortosa. But without their network of castles, the Templars were doomed. Realizing all was lost, they retreated to a tiny island less than a mile from Tortosa. Their wealth, secrecy, and brutality were about to come back to haunt them.
The Templar Code forbade the expense of burying a knight. Instead, his body should be thrown to the dogs. With Acre went the Holy Land. After 2 centuries, the ordeal of driving a people from their own soil proved too great.
The Templars set sail for Europe. During their time in the Holy Land, they had learned the sciences of geometry and mathematics from Arab sources.
As an order, the Templars survived and thrived. While in Palestine, they had become skilled not only as warriors and diplomats, but as merchants.
The Knights Templars gradually became the wealthiest people in Europe, as well as prominent bankers and statesmen. They turned into a major economic force, offering banking services, transferring funds, opening lines of credit, and receiving interest. When Innocent II was elected Pope with their support, the first privilege he gave the Templars was the right to build and run their own churches. At the same time, this meant an architecture with which they could freely reflect their own worldview. With that in mind, they developed their own individual style of building, Gothic architecture. The Templars increasingly moved away from the religious beliefs and practices of the Church. The philosophy and way of life, which they had maintained in secret right from the outset, slowly came to light. Rumors of their deviant lifestyles spread. In October 1307, King Philip of France and Pope Clement V decided to arrest the Knights Templar.
Templars admitted to spitting and urinating on the crucifix, kissing new recruits on the mouth, navel, and buttocks, and homosexual acts.
They worshipped a goat-headed figure by the name of Baphomet. The order had continued its devil-worshipping ceremonies in the greatest secrecy for hundreds of years. This is Roslin Chapel near Edinburgh, one of the Templar churches. Pagan motifs reflecting pagan beliefs are carved all over it. The Templar seal in one corner of the chapel, the same figure of two knights on one horse. A number of knights who had evaded capture fled to the only European kingdom in 14th century Europe which did not recognize the Catholic Church, Scotland. At that time, the Scots were at war with the English. The Templars acquired considerable freedom by siding with the Scots during that conflict. They infiltrated the stonemason guilds, one of the most influential civil society organizations of the time. Later on, these guilds acquired a political and philosophical identity and turned into secret Masonic lodges. It's for these reasons that the Scottish Rite, the first Masonic lodge established by the Templars in Scotland, is the oldest known branch of Freemasonry. They began to spread rapidly throughout Europe with the perfect camouflage this gave them. As well as Freemasonry, the Templars also established the Rose Croix organization. The main focus of this organization was alchemy and magic. The main aim of their work was to rule the world by using the mystical powers in Templar teaching. Another organization set up by the Templars in addition to the Rose Croix was the secret Illuminati Society. The leader of the organization was a fanatical atheist, Adam Weishaupt. All these organizations, run behind the scenes by the Templars, had a common objective: to destroy religious beliefs and to impose on the world the atheist and materialist worldview of the Templars' anti-religious philosophy. To that end, the first great socialist movement was prepared and put into action. That was the French Revolution. Count Cagliostro, who played a behind-the-scenes role in the revolution, was a Mason. Cagliostro's aim was the one-by-one elimination of all the existing monarchies in Europe by spreading revolutionary ideas and inciting revolt. Tens of thousands of people were sent to the guillotine, especially men of religion and supporters of the monarchy. The French king was executed. As he was being guillotined, one of the onlookers shouted, "Demolay, you have been avenged." After a gap of some 400 years, the Templars have taken revenge for their Grand Master Jacques de Molay and their other brothers who had been burned alive. But this was to be neither the first nor the last.